Starting with acrylic paints can get expensive kind of quickly because there are so many different products on the market. So today I will be going over exactly what I would purchase if I was starting over today, as well as the things that I would avoid. And if you are brand new to acrylic paints, then this video is definitely for you. Welcome to the art crew. My name is Rachel and let's get started. The first thing we are going to talk about is the surface in which you are painting on. For beginners, I highly recommend working on canvas panels because they are easy to store, they're nice and thin, and they are very forgiving. I would recommend working on a size anywhere between an 8 by 10 and 11 by 14 inch. And if you are planning to do a lot of practice and don't want to blow through canvas too fast, I do recommend getting something like canvas paper or a canvas pad because these are great for exercises and paintings alike. Well worth the money. Now we're going to talk about the most expensive purchasing part of your acrylic paint setup, and that is the paints themselves. Now I'm going to go a little quick, and if you are curious about the names or anything that I'm talking about, I do have a free acrylic guidebook down below that goes over everything. Feel free to check it out if you're interested. But I have a specific 5-set rule of colors, although technically it's 7. But you can always start with just the 5. You don't need to buy an acrylic paint set, and I'll talk about why here in just a second. But these are the colors that I would recommend. So what I would have is the truest of the primary colors, which is cadmium yellow medium, cadmium red medium, phthalo blue, or you could use cobalt, they're very similar. Then you're going to want titanium white, zinc white works as well, and I like Mars black for my black of choice just because it is more opaque. Now, like I said, there's technically 7 colors if you want to build the perfect color wheel, and that's just because cadmium red and phthalo blue don't make the most lovely violet. So if you're looking for those lovely violet colors, you'll also want ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. Now, the reason why I say don't go out and purchase those lovely beginner sets is because the tubes are so small, they don't account for how much paint that you're actually going to end up using, and they tend to have more binder in them and less pigment, so they're much more transparent and sticky, which can cause a lot of struggles when you're first getting started. So now we come down to paintbrushes. I have been teaching beginners for the last 3 years or so, and I have a system of which you only need to purchase 3 paintbrushes in order to get started. And here is exactly what I would recommend. I highly recommend having a flat brush that is somewhat on the wider side. So 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, or an inch. This is 3/4 of an inch. Then you are either going to want a filbert or flat that is nice and small like this. Filberts are rounded, flats still have that flat top. This is a size 12. Really what you're looking for is just something slightly flat and smaller than your big flat brush. And then last but certainly not least is you are going to want a medium size round brush with a nice tip because this will still give you all of those lovely details. Now, of course, if you are confused by all of the brushes and anything that I talked about, I do have a brush video dedicated to this topic, but if you are just like, I want to get this done now, I do just recommend buying a set of prepackaged brushes. These work great. Some of them just are a little small in size, so I do recommend if you can get a brush pack that has a little bit larger sizes, go for it, but they work wonderfully for beginners, so highly recommend it. Now we need to talk about the last 2 major items that you need to purchase, and the first one is the palette in which you'll be mixing on. Now, you don't need a palette with wells. Those are actually incredibly hard to clean and can be super frustrating. However, I do recommend having something like a plain paper plate or wax-covered paper plate. This is styrofoam. I'm trying to move away from them, but these work out great, or simply purchasing a pack of palette paper. Now, palette paper is typically on sale, which is why I always recommend purchasing a pack of it, and they last a really long time. It just gives you more surface to mix on and is water resistant, so I do highly recommend spending a little bit of money on palette paper if you have it within your budget. Now, last but certainly not least, and the most important thing that we never talk about for beginners to buy is an easel. And I'm not talking about the big one behind me. I'm actually talking about a small tabletop easel, something that looks a bit like this. You see, when we work flat on a surface, perspectives change, faces get elongated, things start to look a little wonky, and we can never figure out why, and that's simply because we're working on a flat surface. So working upright fixes all of those problems and makes it so much easier for beginners to get those brush skills down, including brushwork, blending, and perspective. Now, I like an easel like this if you're just getting started. It has a collapsible back and is easy to store. However, sometimes if you press too hard, it will collapse in on itself. So if you do want to spend a little bit more money to get a little bit of a nicer easel, I do recommend getting an easel like this. This is mine. I've had it for a couple of years now. It's like an L-shaped easel, and it goes all the way up to a 16 by 20, so it can handle slightly larger canvases. It works great just because I can't knock it over, but both easels will work out perfectly well. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below or check out my free guidebook. I'm always happy to answer them as they come up. Happy painting, and I'll see you next time.